This diagram shows the sequence of human civilization, exactly how you'd see it in a standard history textbook. First, we were hunter-gatherers. Then, we figured out how to farm. Farming gave a stable food supply to build cities, and eventually we used leftover grain to invent brewing. In this version of history, booze is an afterthought, a luxury enjoyed only after building a stable society. But over the last decade, archaeologists have been digging up evidence that breaks that timeline completely. Early humans didn't endure the back-breaking labor of agriculture to secure a steady supply of food. We settled down and started farming specifically to guarantee a steady supply of alcohol. To understand why, we have to go back before the first farm, 10 million years ago to be exact, long before human beings existed. UC Berkeley biologist Robert Dudley calls what happened next the drunken monkey hypothesis. Picture an early primate foraging on the forest floor, picking up a piece of fruit that's been sitting out in the sun. Looking at the chemical breakdown of that fruit shows us exactly what was happening. As the fruit bakes, its natural sugars start to break down. Wild yeast gets inside, initiating fermentation, and the fruit produces trace amounts of ethanol. When our primate ancestors ate that overripe fruit, they caught a slight buzz. They didn't know the chemistry behind it, but it felt good, so they intentionally started looking for more of it. Millions of years before anyone knew how to brew on purpose, the biological impulse to seek out alcohol was already hardwired into our evolutionary ancestors. Fast forward to 13,000 years ago. In Israel's Raqefet cave, archaeologists found traces of a nomadic group called the Natufians. Carved directly into the cave bedrock were stone mortars containing wheat and barley that had been soaked, germinated, and fermented. These people were entirely nomadic hunter-gatherers foraging for wild grain, yet they were brewing cave beer before they had even planted a single crop. 1,000 years later, in southeastern Turkey, hunter-gatherers organized the immense labor required to drag stone pillars weighing over 10 tons up a hill to build Göbekli Tepe. These pillars weren't part of a town. At their base, researchers found large stone vats holding chemical residue of fermented grain. It was a massive ritual gathering space where nomadic people traveled from all over to feast and drink together. Early humans willingly executed the staggering work of monumental architecture to host communal parties, completely bypassing the need to build actual cities to live in. This chain of archaeological evidence points to a theory championed by ancient alcohol expert Patrick McGovern. He argues the desire for booze is the actual reason the agricultural revolution happened at all. This shows the utility of early grain. Making bread is a massive hassle. You have to grind the harvest, knead the dough, and bake it. But for early beer, you just soak the grain and let fermentation do the work. Nomads finally decided to settle down and take on the grueling, year-round labor of farming because it was the only reliable way to automate their alcohol supply. In ancient Egypt, we see this biological drive scaling to meet the needs of a massive, organized empire. The massive labor force that constructed the pyramids wasn't paid in cash. Their daily salary was a guaranteed allowance of about 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons of cold beer. Because the water from the Nile was unpredictable and often dangerous to drink, the brewing process acted as a filtration system, a safe hydration source, a calorie-dense lunch, and a form of medicine all wrapped into one, keeping thousands of laborers fueled in the scorching desert heat. A chemical process starting as a toxic byproduct of rotting fruit evolved into the actual currency and logistical infrastructure holding a massive civilization together. The true story of human progress looks very different than the textbook version. It starts with primates foraging on the forest floor, moves to nomadic people grinding wild grain in cave bedrock, and scales up to empires running entirely on liquid paychecks. Civilization didn't invent alcohol as a luxury. Our biological drive for alcohol invented civilization. The next time you're sitting at a bar or pouring a glass of wine at home, take a second to think about what you're actually doing. Raising a glass connects you to a 10-million-year-old evolutionary impulse, the same drive that built the modern world. Cheers to that.